International service learning is a wonderful opportunity to identify and address world issues. It allows you to use your skills to collaborate with a community to meet their specific needs. Hello, I'm Cheryl Kerison, Assistant Professor of Education at Quinnipiac University. Since 2006, I have facilitated a teachers training conference in León, Nicaragua. With this program, the teachers are learning effective instructional strategies that they can implement in their classroom. While presenting at many different conferences throughout the country, I've encountered other educators who think that putting together an international service learning project comes together on its own. Unfortunately, that is not the case. International service learning is not something that can be put together overnight. It is something that takes time, effort, and resources. There are many ways to facilitate international service learning projects. In this video, I will show you how I have developed my program to the point where it has been endorsed by the Education Minister of the León region of Nicaragua as the only non-governmental agency from the United States with the authority to train Nicaraguan teachers. Reaching this point has been the result of hard work and the assistance I have received from many people. I will use my experiences in Nicaragua to get my points across, but keep in mind that if you take my key points and ideas, you too can develop a program just as successful anywhere in the world. The first step to starting an international service learning project is to first find a community. You cannot just spin a globe and put your finger on a random place. Good ways to find a community is by contacting the local office of different international nonprofit organizations to see if they can recommend a community. Before starting my program in Nicaragua, I worked with David Ives, Executive Director of the Albert Schweitzer Institute at Quinnipiac University, to help find a community that was not only in need of assistance, but wanted our services.
Whenever I develop a new program in whatever country I want to work in, I make sure that I develop an important point person on the ground, somebody that I can work with to develop the program and who knows the lay of the land. A good point person is invaluable.
My point person in León, Nicaragua is Dr. Oscar Erdogan, Director of Alianza Americana, an English language school. It is imperative that you choose a point person who not only can represent you and your needs, but also the needs of the community. Before starting a project, I recommend that you visit the community with your point person. Talk together with the community and make sure you understand the cultural context. If you don't know the language, make sure that whoever is translating has the ability to clearly express the ideas you want to get across. Visit the site and speak directly to the people that will be affected by your project idea. In Nicaragua, I go to the schools during each trip so I can assess the community's needs related to education. Needs can evolve and change, so one thing to keep in mind is enter a community with an open mind, and the best thing that you can do is listen.
One of the first things that we need is to sense what are the needs of the community. So what we do is that we talk to the leaders, and the leaders tell us the different needs that are always changing. So we work with them trying to define the plan that it's needed in order to put it in practice.
Once you know the needs of the community, you then can identify the project and desired outcomes. Each year at the conference, we identify different topics to help the teachers in their classroom. For example, we have addressed themes such as using best practices to promote student achievement and the many facets of leadership. A phrase that you will hear a lot is action plan. Once you've identified the project, you need to develop the plan to reach your desired outcomes. Things to keep in mind are audience. Who will be the recipient of your service? It's important to keep your audience in mind so that the services you provide are meaningful and useful. When we first developed our teacher training program, I met with the teachers in the community and asked them what they wanted. Using their feedback, I was able to create a conference that met their professional development needs. Schedule. When during the year will the project take place? How long will your project last? What will the schedule of events look like? You want to plan a schedule where you will experience optimal success. In Nicaragua, we had to plan our conference around their school schedule. Their holidays and vacations are different than in the United States. You're not going to have a great turnout if you plan your project during a time when the community cannot get there. Resources. What resources need to be available for your project to be successful? Are the materials readily available where you're going? For example, León, Nicaragua is near the ocean. An abundant resource is seashells, which are easily accessible and can be used as a manipulative in a science, math, history, or language arts lesson. Funding. How will you financially support this project? Will you fundraise? Are there grants available to you? I always say, investigate all opportunities for financial support. For my projects, I write grant proposals, we fundraise, and we're supported by the Albert Schweitzer Institute at Quinnipiac University. Funding gets easier over time as your project grows. Planning your trip itinerary. Where are you going to stay? What is your mode of transportation? Will you need translators? What policies and procedures of your institution do you need to keep in mind? Not everything always goes smoothly. The best way to avoid these problems is to double-check that everyone has a passport, the right visa, and vaccinations if necessary. To make your international service learning project successful, you're going to need more than just yourself and your point person from the community. When thinking about your action plan, who will you select to help you reach your desired outcome? Things you should keep in mind during your selection process are: how many facilitators will you select? What skills would you like your facilitators to have? In my case, I select a group of teacher candidates who are students in our Master of Arts in Teaching program at Quinnipiac University. I organize and facilitate our teachers' conference, but I depend on these teacher candidate students to produce lesson plans and facilitate workshops. My facilitators are made up of teacher candidate students who are at least juniors in our Master of Arts in Teaching program. When selecting students, I always keep in mind that seniors may have different skills than juniors when it comes to what they have learned from the program. Once you've selected your facilitators, you then need to match everyone's skills with your action plan. In my example of our teachers' conference, I match our teacher candidates with a subject in which they are knowledgeable and one that meets their interests.
I think it's important for facilitators to know what they're teaching, because in any subject area, whether it's teaching or business, anything, you're not going to really be able to get your point across if you don't know the content itself.
The key is to train the teacher candidates, your facilitators, with your outcomes in mind. It is important for them to be self-sufficient, becoming experts in what they are teaching.
It's important to have in-depth preparation for this program because you want to make sure that all the lesson plans are perfected, that your presentations are perfected, so once you get down there, everything's in line. You don't have to worry about anything. You want to make sure everything is detailed beforehand, so once you get down there, you're ready to go.
Preparation is the key to success. When preparing your facilitators, keep in mind that they need to be involved in how to implement the project. When people invest their time and ideas, it not only allows the project to grow, it also allows the facilitators to develop.
When we met on Sundays, we learned the different processes involved in creating a lesson and what it'll be like when we're teaching lessons actually in high schools or middle or elementary.
The month leading up to your project can be very stressful. Everything is hopefully coming together, but there are always those unforeseen problems that arise. Here are some things to keep in mind in order to prevent some of those little problems from popping up. Organize the final logistics with your point person. Will somebody be at the airport to pick you up?
If you're not in constant communication with your point person, things like hotel reservations can go awry. Or, for example, the bus may not be there at the airport to pick you up. Or, for example, you might not have a restaurant reservation that you need. Lots of things can go wrong, so constant communication is essential.
Has your community been contacted? Have invitations been sent out to the people in the community? Will there be local dignitaries?
There is always a direct communication with the teachers and from Cheryl. We're always communicating by emails and trying to have this to make the communication very fluent in both sides.
How will you get your materials to your international site? Shipping is costly and not necessarily reliable. I recommend that you pack an extra suitcase with the materials you need. You may think, why not purchase the materials in the community in which you present? I'm very wary of this because I have had more times than I can count where we haven't had access to paper or printing capabilities. To save time, bring the supplies that you need. You've been in contact with your point person. You have your facilitators. You've put together your materials. Now is the day you've prepared for, arriving at your community to begin your International Service Learning project. Prepare your project site and make sure everything is set. Then, all you have to do is follow your action plan. Your schedule is set, the lessons prepared. During my teachers' conference in Nicaragua, I give a keynote address to set the tone of the conference.
So we want the world to know this can be done. Even though I don't know Spanish and you don't know English, the language of education is universal.
If you have translators, remember to pause every few sentences to allow your ideas to reach your audience. Get acquainted with your translators. If there is miscommunication between you and your translator, how will your audience get your message?
We are going to understand what you are saying, your thoughts, your ideas. And with the interpreter, we're going to understand all of this throughout the conference.
You also have to be flexible and adjust for changes. Things happen. You can practice and rehearse all you want, but for many of them, it may be their first time presenting in front of colleagues, let alone colleagues that may not speak the same language. It is also very important to support your facilitators as they present their lessons.
It was important to have the support from my professors because I could always turn to them if I had a question or if I needed to correct something on my lesson plan. They were always just there to make sure everything went smoothly.
At the end of your project, the most important thing to do is evaluate your project. There are two perspectives to evaluate your project, from the community and from your facilitators. Before your community disperses, it is very important to get feedback from the project recipients. Surveys and questionnaires are useful tools. Another way to get the pulse of the community is through your point person.
Whenever I've worked in the developing world, I have found it essential to go into that community and listen carefully to what their needs are. Often their needs change even from year to year. I evaluate and listen on an annual basis to make sure that I keep up with what their needs are in each community that I go to work in.
It is also important to get feedback from your facilitators. I hold a debriefing meeting with my education students after each day of the conference, as well as a wrap-up when we return. I also ask them to keep journals and write reflections to help them remember what they thought worked and what didn't. When all is said and done, the main question you should be asking is, did you meet your desired outcomes? If you did not, why? If you did, what evidence do you have that they were met? Evaluation is important because it will give you information as to whether the project was meaningful and useful to the recipients.
My teachers are going to receive new things that are going to help them leave that state of mind that says, I can't, to yes, I can. Because here, you don't need a lot of resources. You only need to be open to changes and implement them.
International service learning is not something that can be done overnight. It takes time, and there needs to be thoughtful planning. There are many ways international service learning can be done poorly. It's worth it to take the time, effort, and resources to do it right, not only for your community, but also for yourself. I'm Cheryl Kerison. Thanks for watching.